Days after former President Trump announces his 2024 re-election bid and Republicans lay out their plans to investigate Hunter Biden, Attorney General Merrick Garland names a special counsel to look into the FBI's raid on Mar-a-Lago. Is the timing coincidental or is it corrupt? Well, after all, President Biden did say he'd use all his tools to keep Trump out of office again. Remember this? It was only just a week and a half ago.
We just have to demonstrate that he will not take power if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again.
So are one of those legitimate efforts under the Constitution, whatever that means, the special counsel appointment?
First is the investigation into whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with the transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election. The second is the ongoing investigation involving classified documents and other presidential records, as well as the possible obstruction of that investigation.
Well, former President Trump says the DOJ is playing politics.
I've been going through these investigations and hoaxes and scams from the day I came down the escalator at Trump Tower, and you'd really say enough is enough. This will not be a fair investigation. But again, I thought this was all done or very close to being done. These people are corrupt, and yet they go after innocent people under the guise of legitimacy.
Well, Sean, I want to start with you on this one. Before we get to the Trump investigation, you are my fellow former congressman buddy, and I just want to lay out something for us non-congressional gurus. When the majority controls, they control the Investigations and Oversight Committee. Well, the Republicans have recently cinched control of the House, right. And so therefore they have laid out what they are wanting to do. And in that, the Republicans have said that they have seen about 150 suspicious activity reports as they pertain to Hunter Biden. Yet they've only been able to look at 2 of those. I want to have you take a listen to what Representative Byron Donalds said about this and get your reaction on the other side.
We have the ability to actually go and whether it's make formal requests as the majority that runs the Oversight Committee or even have to go as far as subpoenas for suspicious activity reports. And then when you go down that process, you see where the evidence leads. When Joe Biden became president of the United States, he changed the rules on Congress's ability to view and have access to these suspicious activity reports. So, Joe, why'd you change the rules? That's where we're going to start, and the investigations will go from there.
So, Sean, do you think that this is a smoking gun, or do you actually think there's merit to these investigations?
So, first off, the SARS reports are generated on a lot of people. It doesn't mean there's a crime, but there were reports generated for Hunter Biden. And what this is going to do for Republicans when they take the majority is it's going to give them a roadmap. In where was Hunter Biden making his money? They use the reports to do that, and they might be able to actually access. Did Joe Biden receive any of this money based on those SARS reports? So I think that's important. And again, it shuts down or limits the amount of work you have to do on the investigative front. But can I make one point on, Joe Biden saying, I'm going to make sure he will not take power again? I thought this was the party that talks about democracy. I thought the people had the power to decide who takes power again, not Joe Biden. It's really troubling that we have a party that thinks it's one-party rule, and the people aren't in charge, but they are.
Well, and Anita, Sean makes a very good point. So last week, former President Trump announces he is going to run for the White House again. It has been clear that the DOJ and FBI have influenced elections since 2016. You saw the timing of the Russian investigation, the timing of the Mueller report in 2018, the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story in 2020, and then the Mar-a-Lago raid in 2022. I wanted to take a look at this Fox News poll. Fox News voter analysis showed, compared to previous ones, the Biden administration said 36% said they were more ethical, 42% said less ethical, and 22% about the same. Do you think public perception about this newest now the investigation into the Mar-a-Lago raid. How is this going to be perceived by the public?
Well, you know, I think it depends on who you ask. If you ask a Trump supporter, they're going to say, you know, here we go again, right? You mentioned the Mueller report. That was 2 years, $32 million. Adam Schiff said there was, you know, evidence in plain sight of collusion with Russia. None of these things amounted to anything. So now they have a special prosecutor. They're going outside of the DOJ, which is probably good to go outside of the DOJ. Jack Smith is supposed to be independent of politics. He's supposed to be...
so we think.
Or so we think. He's billed as a nonpartisan former prosecutor from The Hague, I think. But if you look at, I took a look at a Gallup poll of perception of the DOJ. It's not very good. Let's see here. The numbers of people who think they are doing an excellent or good job, 35%, only fair, 35%, poor, 30%. So the perception of the DOJ is not very good. And just this last week, the week of the election, or right before the election, the House Judiciary Republicans put out that 1,000-page report, and they basically said the FBI is broken and the DOJ is highly politicized. Now, that's coming from Republicans, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see what this guy comes up with.
I guess we'll see, Jimmy. Well, so to me, Jimmy, I'll say it feels a little bit like a tit for tat. You hear about the Democrats who are continuously going after Trump, and then the moment that the Republicans cinch the majority, all of a sudden they said, well, now we're going to go after Biden. And it's a little bit back and forth. You have Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre saying that, well, the DOJ is not politicized and the White House doesn't have any idea really what's going on. Take a listen. I want to get your take on this.
First, I can just tell you, no, he was not aware. We were not aware. We do not politicize the Department of Justice. That is something that the president said during the campaign, that we were not involved in this particular issue.
I don't know, Jimmy. Can the White House be trusted?
First of all, hello, it's good to be back from the Patriot Awards. You are the first 3 sober people I've seen in 72 hours. But I mentioned sobriety because you'd have to be drunk to take them at their word on anything at this point, whether we're talking about the White House saying there was no coordination between them and the DOJ, or the DOJ saying that this is not political. Of course it is. And to be clear, this is a delicate story for me because I have been in a casino drinking and gambling. I am Hunter Biden right now, for all intents and purposes, except my dad didn't get a shady kickback potentially from a foreign government. I think no matter who you are, okay, at this point, there's got to be a healthy degree of cynicism towards the FBI, but also towards Hunter Biden, because to be clear, there's been lie after lie when it comes to the narrative surrounding this story. It started with the Justice Department telling us what? This was Russian disinformation, ignore it. We found out that was true. Biden added to that, this is a scam. If you remember, he told our Peter Ducey, you know, you're a one-trick pony with this whole thing, enough already with Hunter. And we found out that he also did lie when he said he didn't know about Hunter's business dealings and had never met his partners. So, you know, I'm just at this point where there's smoke, you know, either Elizabeth Warren's sending a message or there's fire. You know what I mean? Bottom line.
It goes to almost Anita's point that you have a DOJ that has lied for 4 years with regard to the Hunter Biden story, or the Russia collusion story. I mean, they were leaking information, the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, and they kept it alive for 4 years, and it was completely debunked. It was absolutely false. It was a Hillary Clinton-led story, and they went with it. So if we think we'd have faith in the DOJ to investigate Donald Trump, I'm sorry, I don't have that faith, and I was a former prosecutor for 10 years. And I guess you look at Donald Trump, he is the most investigated human being on earth. They have gone through his life with a fine-tooth comb and found nothing. So they're coming back for another bite at the apple.
Yeah, no, at this point, they're going to go in and investigate like the finale of Celebrity Apprentice.
Right.
They're like,
But as we have seen, it is no longer grassroots movements. It is no longer good policy that are influence elections. All it is these smoking guns that are coming out before election cycles that are influencing people who will vote. You also see that the FBI has worked in cahoots with Facebooks and others to suppress certain stories.
Right.
And that is how elections are being formed these days. Talk about democracy being in peril. It is in peril because of this. And this is going to last for the next 2 years. You will hear about these investigations with Mar-a-Lago and Trump. And if history repeats itself, again, it won't be anything major that comes out of it, but it may cost him the election because it does influence voters.
That's the point. The process is the punishment. That's what the whole point of the Mueller probe was. Going into it, everybody knew he didn't collude with Russia because of what you said, the origin story of the dossier. But they were trying to get him to self-destruct through all of those anonymously sourced bombshell reports, death by 1,000
News
cuts.
stories,
Because if he fires Mueller, it creates the perception that there's a there. In this instance, there's nobody for him to fire because he's out of power. So I think, if anything, it may help him in that it'll build some resentment towards what we call the deep state. But I'm not a deep state issue. I'm more of a deep dish guy, to be clear. Look at me. Look at me.
If it's pizza, count me in.
Thank you.
Bob Mueller was supposed to be the gold standard, right? That's what we kept hearing. What do you know about this Jack Smith? Does he have a sterling reputation? I mean, you kind of laughed when I said he was supposed to be nonpartisan. Do you know?
Well, no, listen, I think there's some who will look at him and say they don't think he's nonpartisan, right? And that's yet to be determined. We'll see if he's going to be nonpartisan. Can I make one last quick? I know we got to go, but I look at this. Republicans didn't go after Hillary Clinton. When Donald Trump won, you had the whole email scandal and secure information on a private server. They said, you know what? This is a bad look. We don't want it to look like the victor's going after the vanquished. And she more than likely committed a crime, but that doesn't look good. Democrats let's throw all of the history out of America. Let's go to a third world banana state country, and where people in power go after their political enemies. This is the new frontier for America that we haven't seen before, and I think it's a scary frontier. I wouldn't wish it on any country, especially America.
Well, the next 2 years will be interesting for sure.
Yes, it will.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.